So I began working with environmental controls many years ago, and some of the things I'm going to cover are how today's electronic aids are home automation technologies. And in fact, when they came out with that acronym, EADLS, or EADLs, I thought, it's just somebody, what do we need another acronym? We've always called them ECUs, right? Well, really, when you think about it, ECU implies a unit, a self-contained device that you speak into or activate a switch for or whatever, and then it does something. But now, with so many things, with home automation becoming available, we have several different devices incorporated in this overall solution. So really, EADL is a better term to use, more precise in terms of what this stuff does. Okay, again, ECUs or EADLs are devices often self-contained. Historically, that's what they've been, right? The Quartet, the Pilot, etc. And these are devices made to be operated either using voice, adapted switch, which can be a twitch, a muscle movement, a proximity switch, a micro touch switch. I mean, all kinds of adaptive switches, right? And then it may be a combination of switch and voice. And typically, ECUs are used for controlling lighting, audio and video equipment, bed adjustments, door openers, and temperature control, typically, okay? So the reason I have a star next to audio video equipment and bed adjustments, you know, over the years, you kind of gather from working with people from their comments, what they're most excited about as far as what you had set them up with and now they can do independently. Well, bed adjustment is right up there. They love being able to control their bed. And being able to do that independently is something that they highly, highly value. And there can also be an argument for medical on that, because if you're able to raise the head or foot or whatever you're adjusting, the weight distribution, and this can help with skin integrity. But also audio video. Well, let's face it, the people that we work with spend an inordinate amount of time watching television. We would hope that they would get out in the community more, but let's face it, the real world is, it's hard to get out in the community when you have a severe mobility disability. And so they spend a lot of time watching TV, and being able to adjust the volume and change the channel and what have you is something, they can do that independently. It makes a better day for them. Lighting control, right? Okay, so this goes way back. In the beginning, there was X10, right? X10 was invented in Scotland. And it was about 1974, but they really didn't come over here and start making its way into devices for control through Sears and what have you, Radio Shack, etc., until like 1978. So it's been around for a while. And X10 is used for controlling lights on and off usually. You can also do X10 for brighten and dim. And so if you're controlling the ceiling lights or lights built into the walls or what have you, you use a different type of switch than if you're controlling something like a plug-in fixture, a lamp, a table, floor lamp, table lamp, things like that. And we'll come back to these chains in just a little bit. That's called local control as far as how you turn something on or off, like a lamp, if you're not using a wall switch. So ECUs control lights through automated wall switches or plug-in modules. There on the top, we have a lamp, and that's usually plugged into a control module. And then you would set the address, you might say, for this controller, controlling this light, to a house code and a unit code. And you had 16 of each. So that alphanumerical code would be like A1 or B3 or what have you. And that whatever that device was set to, that module or the wall switch, then once that signal would be sent through the power line, that module would hopefully respond, right, in the appropriate way, on or off. And usually the ECU would send out an X10 signal through either IR, and sorry for the low resolution image here, but since this is an old device, it's hard to find a high-res image. And so this would be infrared receiving. So that means our ECU would need to send out infrared for X10, and then this would receive it. And we all know X10 is line of sight. Nothing can be in the way. You have to be pointing at it, etc. And then this is RF. It's got that antenna sticking up, and that's what's going to receive the RF X10 signal emitted out of our ECU if it's sending out X10 RF, right? RF had the advantage of not being line of sight. So, problems with X10. Lack of compatibility with modern home wiring and lighting technologies. Today, you're having wires in the home, or wiring technology in the home that's different than it was before. You have things called fault-tolerant breakers, things like that it can affect. Any kind of anomaly that's considered to be an anomaly over the power line, and an X10 signal is sometimes detected as an anomaly. And so a lot of things can affect the compatibility of X10 as far as the house wiring goes. You have things called power line noise. Motors, chargers, things like that you plug into the wall will cause a bit of disturbance, you might say, in the electrical signal. And so it doesn't affect the lights that much, but it will affect anything that's dependent on controlling that light that's using the power line for control. So commands are often lost, leading to no response or incorrect response. You may say, living room light on. Well, instead of the living room light going on, the bedroom light goes off, or whatever, just stuff that is like, how did that happen? And so it's because things get distorted. So, and interference by the neighbor. This is good. Homes share, depending on the number of the homes and the size of the homes and that type of thing, they share something called a transformer. And so that's basically kind of a link, power line-wise, between the homes. And I was working on a situation one time where it's like every day, at 5:30 p.m., a light would come on or whatever. They're like, where did that come from? Who said light turn on or whatever? Nobody. And he had no kind of a timer thing set up in his ECU solution or anything like that. But the neighbor had a timer, X10 type of thing. And so it would come on and it would affect his lights, right? So you had this thing as far as lack of security and interference with the neighbor's home. So be it either infrared, that the X10 signal was being picked up from and then sent to the power line, or RF, each X10 device along its way to the intended device would act like a sponge. And it would actually absorb some of that signal, and even though it may not respond, it would weaken or distort the signal, so by the time it got to the intended module or switch or whatever, it would no longer be recognizable, or the incorrect response would happen. I always like this doormat. the neighbors have better stuff. It's like, don't even bother robbing us. Just go to the neighbor. They have better stuff. But better stuff has arrived. So X10, the pros were it was inherent in many self-contained ECU devices, right? Because basically it was the only game that there was in terms of remote lighting control. And power line control, PC or PLC, was one-way communication. So you had no way of to know whether or not, if you were looking at if you were using Tobii for eye gaze or what have you, you had no way of knowing if that light was on or off. Increasingly unreliable and slow and not secure. Where you have now technologies such as Insteon, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Wi-Fi. The pros, they're RF. Two-way communication providing status and reports, or state reports. More reliable, faster, and more security. You have, the downfall is that they're not built into ECUs because, this requires soldering like a radio, whatever, into a device, and it's like, oh, you can't use this ECU because this one's sending Zigbee, and you have Z-Wave, or what have you. So they're no longer building anything other than X10 into ECUs. Okay, so most the more interest leads to more development in home automation technologies. I had somebody once bring up, this was like 10 years ago or something like that, and we were talking about the Pilot. Siemens made the Pilot, right? And we were talking about the cost and what it would do. And one of the OTs there says, golly, my phone will do all this stuff, and it doesn't cost that much, and it will do a lot more and everything else. But it's an economy of scale thing. How many pilots or quartets or whatever it is you're wanting to talk about do they make in a year versus how many of these do they make in an hour, right? It's huge. It's absolutely huge. So it's an economy of scale. So the more interest there is in something, the price comes down and the features increase in terms of what it's able to do. So home automation technology has become increasingly popular really since 2012. Pretty recent. For automated remote lighting, automated temperature control, smart thermostats, home security. We want to be able to check if, say, our home is locked or not. We want to be able to check in at the home and see what the dog is doing or what have you. IP cameras. Energy savings and environmental concerns. We want to be more green. We don't want to leave lights on and all this other kind of stuff. And so that's led to an increasing popularity in home automation since 2012. And here you can see how much it has just exploded, really. Like, just look from 2014 to 2017. That's in millions. Okay, so it's like really gained traction in the last couple of years. So typical home automation solutions. Home automation technologies generally utilize a control hub. That's what this is. This is the SmartThings hub made by Samsung. It was just a point of interest. It started out as a Kickstarter project, and then Samsung purchased it. Most typical method of controlling this is through a mobile app. We're talking phone or tablet, not a Windows desktop operating system like the Tobii, right? So you can't run apps on the Tobii. And if somebody needs to use eye tracking or whatever, a phone or tablet may not work for them. So a web browser There's only a few controllers out there. When I say controllers, I'm talking about Control Hub that support a browser interface, where you can control things, not configure them necessarily, but can actually control things through a browser interface. So typically what the Control Hub is a bridge between your data network, your Wi-Fi, your Twitter, your Facebook, your browsing, whatever, and your control network. So normally people have one of these, a LAN, local area network is what LAN stands for, router with wireless access inside their homes. And then they will attach a control hub to that. And it's best if that's attached with a wire, an Ethernet cable, rather than wireless. And that control hub is what is controlling your devices, your smart home devices, either through RF or IP or whatever kind of devices you're using in the home. Do they talk Zigbee? Do they talk Z-Wave? Do they talk Insteon? Etc. So, the data network versus control network. The data network is basically point-to-point. Your iPhone is talking to your wireless router. Where in a control network, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and so on, they know about their neighbors. They're actually communicating with each other. So they have alternate routes, and they know, did that device acknowledge, or should I send that signal again? Things like that. Consider these factors when choosing a control hub. It's also called, basically think of it as a platform that you're using. Make sure it's widely supported control protocol. If it is, you're going to have more utility and more interoperability. If something says Z-Wave certified, it means it has passed the standards. It must do all the things that the Z-Wave Alliance says. It must do these things. And it must follow these rules in order to be certified as Z-Wave. Okay? So that's the interoperability. You have a control hub that's Z-Wave, made by Universal Devices, perhaps. How do you know that that Z-Wave device is going to work with your controller? If it has the Z-Wave stamp on it, it has to work with your Z-Wave controller. The range of control objectives. Most people using home automation, they don't give consideration to things like momentary contact closures for door openers. These are devices that receive a signal through a smart signaling method, Z-Wave, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, what have you, to open. It's like a relay. A relay basically connects a low voltage system to a higher voltage system and says turn on or whatever. And so you're triggering things with door openers and things like that with momentary contact closure devices, and things like HomeKit with Apple don't make momentary contact closures. So avoid proprietary control technologies. You're kind of going to be locked in to what they offer. And most likely they're going to be offering things for mainstream that aren't necessarily going to be so adaptable for people that need to use alternate means of controlling things in their home. Also a browser interface. If we're working with people that are using eye tracking, eye gaze, they need to have a browser interface. They can't run a mobile app. So here's an example of a couple of controllers. Those two on the middle and the one on the left, they can only be controlled through a mobile app. The one on the right can be controlled with a mobile device, not an app, because we'll get to that in a minute, They can be controlled with a mobile device, tablet, phone, etc., as well as the desktop operating system through a browser interface. We all bring up browsers on our phones and our tablets, as well as our desktops, right? It doesn't have to be a mobile operating system app to control this. So things that I'll mention about Insteon. Hi. Come on in. Some things I'll mention about Insteon are noteworthy. For instance, one is it's a lot easier to configure a three-way switch. A three-way switch is what they call a light fixture that is controlled by more than one switch. So typically these are like at the ends of hallways or the bottom of the stairs, the top of the stairs, and that type of thing, but it's basically controlling one light fixture or a group of light fixtures, and two different switches are turning those on or off. And Insteon is a lot easier to configure for a three-way than Z-Wave and Zigbee are. The ISY994 IZW is the controller that I have up here. They've been in the business for a long time. They make a controller, the IZW. The I is for Insteon and the ZW is for Z-Wave. So it controls both. It will control Insteon devices and Z-Wave, giving you a much greater selection or choice of things to control because you're able to find devices that can control those. For instance, like the fan link. Insteon's the only one that makes it. If I had a ceiling fan here, you have ceiling fans that have adjustable speeds, on, low, medium, high, and they have a light built into them, right? And so unless you have a separate method of controlling the light from the fan and controlling the speeds on the fan, you're not going to be able to get them to where you can control them independently. For instance, Jack, you could have a wall switch that just turns the power on the fan. Let's say you have the chains that adjust the speed. So if you turned it off when it was medium and the light was on, you turn it back on, that fan's going to be at medium, and the light's going to be on. If you want the light to go off, the fan goes off, etc. Right? So with this, it allows you to control all those things independently. Again, with eye tracking or with voice, etc. So this is the browser interface, an example of it. You'll see the green on and the red off icons, letting you know, again, that status is it on or off, etc., just by looking at the browser. This is how it's seen in Firefox. The browser suggested, recommended, advised by Toby Dynavox. And this is a built-in web server in that device, which is kind of cool, because that means if you lose internet, you're still looking at your browser, because the browser is hosted on the inside in that device, not out on the internet. Another nice thing about a browser interface is it automatically scales to any size display. So you bring up that same browser that was on the desktop, that was in the previous screen, you bring it up on the phone, it's going to be the same. It's going to automatically scale to that size of the device that you're viewing it on. And another nice thing about that is, let's say you have, again, getting back to this lamp that has these chains that you turn it on and off, and it's called local control. So you're not necessarily controlling it with the module that it's plugged into. You're turning it off up here, which means that that module can be on and the light is still off. So if somebody using the ECU wakes up in the middle of the night and they go, I want the nightstand light to be on, they can't turn it on because it was turned off here. But if you have family members, etc., turning it off with their phone, then they're turning off the module that it's plugged into, and it remains on up here, but the light goes out, right? Because the power is turned off at the module. Okay, again, getting back to that thing as far as local area network, on your side of the router, everything can still be up and running. You can still access the web, the ISY web server built into it. You may not have internet, but you're still able to bring up your controls on your browser.
So as long as the Wi-Fi is working, the internet can be down and you can still operate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. As long as it's got to be, your internet is down, but your LAN is still up and running. Now that does require that you keep, so it's not a power issue, the power is not out, but your internet service is down for whatever reason. Evolution of voice. This is something I really enjoy talking about because I've been working, it was voice that got me interested in assistive technology. I began working with voice input in the early 90s. I was a member of the IBM Speech Systems Developer Assistance Program. The name of their first commercial product ran on an older operating system that was graphical called OS/2. And this was before they were putting sound cards in computers. So you had to add a dedicated DSP card inside the computer for it to run the speech recognition software. So I've been working with speech recognition for a long time, but the thing that got me interested in it was I thought, wow, this is really cool because people who can't use a mouse and a keyboard can now access their computer with voice. So that's what got me into speech, and I followed it all up until now. And I can tell you the new cloud-based speech recognition is just awesome. It is awesome. Okay, so shortcomings of standalone, self-contained ECU EADL voice control. Inferior speech recognition accuracy, and we'll get to why that is in just a minute. Susceptible to interference by ambient noise. Battery reserve on mobile devices is a concern. Speech uses a lot of battery, especially if it's always awake. Mounting concerns on wheelchairs. Man, I'll tell you what, that is something that it's an ongoing thing to work out appropriate mounting on wheelchairs for things because usually so much stuff is on there already and very little space to clamp onto or what have you. Updates are slow in coming. And this goes back to that thing as far as how many iPhones do they make in an hour versus how many ECUs do they make in a year, etc. So there are updates in the speech for Alexa coming out weekly. Weekly, okay? So it used to be 8 or 9 years for the standalone ECU solutions. Okay, so local processing of speech recognition is limited by computer resources and acoustic base. In other words, your sample. How many other voice bits or what have you are you connecting or are you comparing this individual's voice with in order to decide what it is that they're actually saying? Cloud, you have an enormous amount of processing power as well as sampling. So before, in standalone speech recognition, even the best, which a lot of ECUs don't use the best, but the best speech recognition that's out there is using the prior 4 words compared to try to analyze the current word you said to determine what that word should be. Again, you're limited in the amount of processing or resourcing, hardware resources that the computer has. Cloud speech analysis offers neural networks and computing. all of this cross-checking and everything else before it decides what it is that you said. So basically looking at right now, you can analyze the full sentence to determine what this word should be rather than just the prior 4 words. Okay, now this is where a lot of people are confused. Is it Alexa? Is it Echo? What is it? Well, Echo is the device made by Amazon, and they have several devices, different types, some with displays, some with not. Amazon Alexa is the service hosted on those servers out there in the cloud. They're analyzing what this hears to determine what it is that you're wanting, what you're requesting. So Google has the Google Home, they have the Google Home Mini, and they have the Google Home Max. Okay, but the Google Home is the name of their devices. Echo is the name of the device from Amazon. And Google is using Google Assistant as the service for analyzing what's heard through here. So the variance in the platform devices. So you have first generation, second generation of the Echo, current generation, which is the second generation, Echo Show, Echo Spot, Echo second generation, and Echo Plus. Echo Plus has its own controller built into it. However, it is a Zigbee controller. So you are limited to Zigbee using the controller in that device. So, with that being said, you also have the Google, and they have 3 devices now. They have the Mini, the Google Home, and the Google Max. Remember we were talking before we started about Sonos, right? And so the reason they have the Google Max is for the same reason that Apple is coming out with HomePod. Apple's not necessarily going to be all that excited about competing with voice control within the home as Amazon is, or Google, but they want you to be able to enjoy things that you're hearing over your iTunes throughout the house. So they're coming out with the bigger speaker system called the Apple HomePod that you're going to have. This is a speaker system, and this is going to be equivalent to probably something like this here, although I don't have one of these. I've heard they're pretty good in terms of sound.
So I don't use Apple products. Well, I don't have an iPhone. So is that compatible with the Echo or like the Google and the Amazon products? Or
If your phone is not an Apple?
if you have an Apple phone?
Oh,
like an
yeah,
iPhone. Okay,
yeah.
they aren't locking you out
Yeah.
of iTunes or anything.
No.
Okay.
You just have the app, whatever mobile platform or whatever mobile operating system you're using, you have it. So for instance, like if you're using an Android phone, you go to the Google Play Store to get your app, and Alexa makes an Android-based app for the Android-based phones available through Google Play. Here, you can get it through, if you're using an iPhone, you can get their app through the App Store, right? And really, the only time you're really using the app is to set up the device. You connect the device to your Wi-Fi. It needs to know what your security settings are, your authentication for connecting to your Wi-Fi. So when you initially connect an Echo device to the service in your through your Wi-Fi, you're using your phone, which is basically using a Bluetooth connection from your phone to the device. You look in your Wi-Fi settings, you find your device. It will start with Amazon something or other, and then you tap on that, and it will ask you to put in your credentials, your passkey. And that's really the only time you're using the app. That's the only time I use the app. Current install base. This is huge. Fortune Magazine, September of 2017 reports, Amazon Echoes, there's about 75% of all smart speakers out there are Amazon Echoes, where Google Home has about 24%. So really, these guys are huge, right? I mean, they're even putting we talked about this before we started, that they're putting this in, Ford is going to be putting this in their vehicles. And so, if you're wondering if something is integrated with Amazon or Google, it's more likely to be integrated with this before that. And it's also better integrated, and I'll get to that in just a minute because we're going to talk about skills. Amazon, through their ecosystem, calls them skills, and there's either custom skills or smart home skills. Smart home skills is the way to go. And with the Google services, you don't have the equivalent. You have to make things called shortcuts and stuff like that to not have to say the invocation name. And we'll get to what an invocation name is here in a minute. So in other words, your utterances can be shorter using the Amazon Echo devices. Okay, so benefits of cloud-based smart speakers using Amazon's Echo or Google's Google Home. Highly accurate far-field voice recognition. That means there can be a smart speaker, an Echo device, or Google Home over on that table over there. They both have the same far-field technology. And I can activate it from here. Alexa, turn on conference room lights. I don't have to be right on top of it. It's amazing. And another really nice thing is before, when we were using environmental control units with voice built into them, they were doing things sometimes we didn't want them to do. Like wake up and all of a sudden turn something on or change the channel or what have you, when we're really just talking to somebody in the room. Well, you don't have that with these devices because you use something called a wake-up word or wake word. And you can, with the Google device, you have either OK Google or Hey Google, but with the Echo device, you can have it set to either computer, Amazon, Echo, or Alexa. And I found that Alexa is a little less likely to think it heard the wake word instead of you use Echo. But every once in a while, it'll still wake up even with Alexa, and especially if a commercial comes on and they go, Alexa, things start to wake up. Okay, you can basically add a smart speaker to any room that you need to. Very economical. Not on sale. The Echo Dot is $49. On sale, it's $39, and just before the holidays, it was $29. So you can, basically have one of these in 3 or 4 rooms, no sweat. So whatever room the person is in, they've got voice control. And even if you only have one in a small house, it can still pick you up pretty well, even in the other room. It's always plugged into power, so battery reserve is not a concern. Unless you're using one of the battery-operated Alexa devices, and we'll get to that in a minute. And Amazon has 2, Google has none, unless you're using the Google phone or the Android phone. The 2 that Amazon offers, one's called the Amazon Tap, and the other one is the Fire HD 10 tablet. Both of them have Alexa Always Listening if you set them to always listen. Battery power on this guy here with Alexa Always Listening, you're talking about a little over 24 hours. So throughout the course of the day, it's going to do fine unless you're streaming music all day long. This is called the Amazon Sling, or the Tap Sling, one or the other, and can easily be used to put a carabiner through there and latch it on the headrest, the wheelchair, or whatever, and it works great. This is also now has the Alexa hands-free capability built into it, the tablet does. So the only reason that you're really going to need perhaps a battery device is if the person's going to be going outside and they want to be able to give a voice command to come back inside.
For a door opener.
Yeah, a door opener, right. The ISY is one of the first to be integrated with the Alexa at the API level. There's different ways, and we're talking about skills and that type of thing as far as being able to be well integrated into the your device, whatever it is. And this is one of the first. It's fabulous. Amazon has a greater selection of smart speakers than Google. You have the Echo, the Echo Dot, the Echo Show, the Echo Look, which I still think is funny, yeah, and the Echo Plus, the Echo Spot, the Amazon Tap, and the Fire HD. And with Google, you have 3, the Mini, the Max, and the Go Home. Okay. You've all seen the commercials on TV, I'm sure, where with Xfinity, the person will take the remote and they'll hold it up here. What they don't show you is there's a button press that's required for that, right? Plus they're holding it up close so that the TV sound doesn't interfere with it.
And it doesn't work well if the batteries are running low.
Aha, okay. Well, I don't use it myself. I'm one of the original cord cutters. In fact, I think they named that phrase after me. But I was one of the original cord cutters. I thought, goodness gracious, what am I paying each month for? You know. Okay, so you also have Roku now, a little microphone button on there, and that type of thing as far as voice control. Again, this is controlling not your TV, not your AVR, not your soundbar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Lights, go on, bed, whatever. It's controlling this with voice, your Roku, right? This is controlling your Xfinity box, okay? Smart TVs, there's even Amazon even has a line of their own TVs that have Alexa built into them. So, but if we're really wanting to, I mean, these are all controlling their own individual thing, right? But I've got something better to show you as far as being able to control all of this stuff. These remotes usually require a push of a button to open the mic. They don't provide volume controls using voice, and they won't switch source or inputs using voice. And it's all about inputs these days, right? People are switching to Roku, which is an HDMI 2 or whatever. They're switching to their cable box, an HDMI 1. They're switching to whatever they have. They're changing source inputs, either on their AVR or on their TV. So Alexa and Google Home or Google Assistant, those are the services. And either of these two services here work well with this device. This is called the Logitech Harmony Hub. This is an IR blaster that will just blow you away because it fills the room with infrared. You don't have to be pointing this at it, your device that you're wanting to control. It just fills the room. You can have things, even devices on different levels of a rack or shelf or whatever. I mean, your cable can be up here and soundbar down here or Roku down here or whatever. The infrared will get to it. Plus it does IP control. I just mentioned smart TVs. A lot of smart TVs these days are controlled through IP, Wi-Fi, or Ethernet. Roku can be controlled either through IR or IP. That's where you're able to bring up an actual app that they make for your Windows desktop, Windows 10, etc. And you have your IP controls for your Roku. So with the Harmony, You can start and end a Harmony activity, including bed controls. You can switch to a favorite TV channel. You can tune to any TV channel. Say, Alexa, change to channel 157, or what have you. Switch to one of your favorite Roku channels. Alexa, turn on Netflix. Or let's say you're using Roku for your Netflix, you'll switch over to your Roku activity, turn on your Netflix, and you're there. Pause or play TV movies, or pause TV or movies or music activity. Control the volume on your Harmony activity, volume up, volume down, mute. And it's kind of cool because we all know from working with ECUs is you program a volume up or a volume down in there, and depending on the remote that you're using, maybe it's not enough, maybe it's too much, whatever. With this here, you have an option of 1 through 10 as increments. 10%, 50%, 5, 10 being 100% volume, right? So you can say, Alexa, change volume to 10. Alexa, turn volume down to 3. Okay, so you can either say volume up or volume down, and it has defaults in there, and you can change that default, or you can actually be more precise and tell it, a certain number. The Logitech Harmony Hub Pro is something that has some advantages. They showed here with the remote. Well, you're not pointing this remote at the TV or whatever. This remote is making a Bluetooth connection to this hub. The thing I like about that idea here of using this remote is the bed controller, an infrared interface, has a remote. But the remote is not the most durable. Feel these buttons. So that skin over those buttons will wear after a while. And usually the remote is being used by a caregiver or family member. So this actually gives you another alternative as a remote to use with a bed controller as well. So using the Echo or Google Home as a hands-free telephone, this is cool. This is really cool. This is something relatively new, newer with the Echo than it was with the Google Home. Google Home actually had it out a little bit before. It was offered through Echo. But now you can call somebody's phone using the Echo. It used to be that you would call somebody's app. If they had their app on their phone, you could call their app. And they could see, oh, it's John calling or whatever, and answer through activating the app on the phone. You can now actually call phones, landline, mobile phones, etc. This can be somebody in your contacts list, or it can be a different number, like call 505-301-8183, and she'll do it. It doesn't have to be in your contacts.
So it's making a Wi-Fi call then?
Nope. No, it's making a call through the Alexa voice services to another phone.
So you wouldn't need to have, you can just call through it. You don't need to have Skype and have credits to call landline. You can just call directly through this.
Right,
Okay.
right.
And it's not using your cell phone for the signal, it's just what's it going through to make the call?
Okay, so if you're using Alexa to Alexa, if you're using it from Echo to Echo across the state or country or what have you, then it's using your data.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just using the cellular network. Whatever service you're using on your cell phone, it's tying into that. Now we'll get to something called the Echo Connect in just a minute, and that's a new product also, and that's made for a phone, landline or voice over IP phone, and that makes it to where you can also call 911. So just about the only thing you can't do with any of these guys up here is call 911. But everything else you can do. And again, if we're looking for a display, these guys here won't offer that, but these here will, which is kind of neat, especially if you're using it. There's something called drop-in. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so drop-in is where you can actually use it like an intercom. So let's say I have one of these in my kitchen and one of these in my office. I can say, Alexa, drop in kitchen. This one's named kitchen. All of a sudden, I'm now able to talk to the kitchen. I can go, hey, how's everybody doing in there? Or whatever, right? And they can talk back. And so we have an intercom that's activated hands-free. With this here, if I had one of these in the office and one of these in the kitchen, I could say, Alexa, drop in kitchen. Now I'm not only talking to them, I see them. And this can be really handy as like a room monitor type of a thing, to where you're wanting to know, I wonder how they're doing. And you can actually see them.
Are you using these at different VAs now? Like, have you successfully had a install with 2 of them and using it as monitor?
Let's see, I've used them as intercoms,
Okay.
but I haven't used them as monitors yet. I now have one that's waiting to be authorized in Auburn, because they're using a baby monitor thing that doesn't give them a very clear picture, and they're wanting a clearer picture, and this is a pretty economical way of being able to add an intercom and camera in that other room.
I'll be curious to let us know how that goes for authorization, because we've been given mixed messages about using Wi-Fi and how that's sharing information and privacy issues around it. Especially if there's a picture, I'm just curious, so let me know how that goes.
Yeah, okay.
For veterans in their own home?
We're told that we're not allowed to do cloud stuff with wheelchairs. We've been told we can.
Okay, so again, these are the applications and devices with different displays. You have the Spot. That's a pretty new one. Came out in December. It's about this big around. And then you have the Show. And here's an example of how you may want to use it as a room monitor. Calling. Comparing the calling and intercom or room monitor functionality between Google Home and the Echo devices. Support for calling features. Call between smart speakers? Yes, for Alexa or Amazon's Echo. No for Google Home Assistant. So there's no smart speaker to smart speaker. Smart speaker to smart speaker can either be within the home or outside the home. So you can actually call somebody across the country if they have an Amazon Echo or Spot or Echo Look. Any plug-in, not a battery device. You cannot use drop-in on the Tap or the Fire HD. Call from smart speaker to phone. Alexa, yes. Google, yes. Support for video calls, room monitoring. Alexa, yes. Google, no. 911 calls, yes if you're using the Echo Connect. And no, that is the Connect with a smart speaker. That's what the SS is. Okay, so you're using every Echo device as like a hands-free phone, and could be used for not only calling other phones and other Echo devices, but now that you have the Connect, it's a $35 device, you can now use their phone service if you're calling 911, be it either a landline or a voice over IP. The Google Assistant with Google Home, so for the 911, and they have support for calling from phone to smart speaker. Yes, if the person is calling from the mobile app using the Alexa app. In other words, this person can have the mobile app. Let's say you have a caregiver. A caregiver is running late or whatever, and they want to notify the person in their bed or whatever that they're running late. They can actually use the app on their phone, be it Apple, Android, whatever, and call this person's Echo devices. Again, they'll all ring, but he's going to answer the one closest to him, next to his bed or whatever. And now he's got a voice call with that person, calling him to let them know they're running behind. Google Assistant, no, you can't do that. In other words, you cannot use your phone to call an Echo Google Assistant. You can with Alexa, with the app. This is the Connect. You basically have two simple connections on the back, one for power, one for phone jack.
And that's how it calls 911, is through a phone line.
Right.
So do you have to pay for plain old telephone service then to use the Echo Connect?
Yeah, a lot of people have phone service these days through the people like to call them bundles.
Right.
And they'll have they'll have phone service through that. And you can use this to use the Alexa devices like a hands-free phone.
And sorry, I'm not making the connection on one point. So on the last slide, you were talking about how you can call someone's cell phone or even a landline from your home using any of the Alexa devices. And
Yeah, you cannot use a landline. Okay, so let's say you're using a phone service through Comcast or
like a landline.
CenturyLink or whatever these days, right?
Yeah, like you have a home phone landline.
You have a home phone landline. You pick up the handset. You cannot dial somebody's Echo.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I'm
You
still
can
not-
call their Echoes if they have the Connect.
Right.
Because it's like you're calling in to their phone service,
Right.
but the Echoes are now enabled to be speakers and mics,
Speaker mic.
hands-free.
Okay. So if someone is, so let's take the Echo Connect out and they just have an Echo, a regular old Echo Dot or something like that. They can call their caregiver's cell phone, say their caregiver's at the grocery store.
They can call their caregiver's cell phone as long as their caregiver is in their contacts.
Mm-hmm.
On their so when you sign up, when you register your Echo device,
Mm-hmm.
it will ask you for you to share the contacts. In that way, you can say, call Martha Davis or whatever your caregiver is,
Mhm.
and it will call her on her cell phone if she has the Alexa app on her cell phone.
And that's not necessarily using their landline service, it's using the internet, correct?
Yes, it's using the Alexa services.
Got it, Alexa services. Okay, thank you.
Skills. This is important because there's a difference. You have custom skills with Alexa, and then you have smart home skills. Always want to get a smart home skill whenever it's available. Because custom skills, everybody and their brothers out there making custom skills. But you have to access them different as far as what they call the invocation word. For instance, like if you didn't have a smart skill for the so let's use the examples that I have here. Custom skills require an invocation name, and I'm going to use Harmony as an example. Okay, so if you're using a custom skill to control your Harmony, you have to say, Alexa, ask Harmony to turn on the TV. The ask Harmony part is the invocation phrase that needs to be said. So if you have a little different controls, you have to say, ask so-and-so to do this, ask so-and-so to do that, etc. If you're using a custom skill and it's available for the Harmony, which it is, then all you need to do is say, Alexa, turn on TV. Alexa, turn up the volume. Now, because the Alexa is also used as a speaker for music and things like that, you may be turning up the volume on the device itself and not your TV. So every once in a while, she'll kind of wander off somewhere, and you have to say, "On my TV," afterwards, so that she'll control the volume on the correct device that you have set up in the Harmony. And with the Assistant, Google Assistant, you have to say the invocation, unless you create shortcuts, and that's just extra steps that you have to go through. And then if you change your devices as far as how they're plugged in and all that kind of stuff, then you have to make those shortcuts again, which is kind of more steps to go through.